A desert is an area that is characterized by having little and unpredictable rainfall, less than 250 millimeters per year. The result is often a scarcity of plant and animal life. Many deserts are found in bands along 30 degrees latitude north and 30 degrees latitude south, between the red lines on the map. This would be the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Some deserts located by mountains are caused by the rain shadow effect. As air moves up over a mountain range, it gets cold and loses the ability to hold moisture, so it rains or snows. When the air moves down the other side of the mountain, it gets warmer. Warm air can hold lots of moisture, so it doesn't rain as much, and a desert is formed on the other side, as you can see here. Very low amounts of moisture are found in deserts. This low amount of moisture makes it very hard for plants or animals to take a living up here, as the ground is very saturated and almost no levels of nutrients exist. Air is heated in greater amounts at the equator because the angle of light hitting the equator is closer to perpendicular. That is, there is less surface area exposed to higher amounts of radiation, increased warming results. These low pressure zones suck in moisture bearing masses, or rain clouds, while the equatorial air masses travel towards the poles. As the equatorial air masses travel away from the equator, they cool in temperature and descend closer to the surface of the globe. Higher pressure and increased dryness results in the air masses near the surface. Moisture is sucked from the surface at 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south because the air masses are increasing in temperature and are unable to hold more water.
Different erosional processes have created and continue to alter the characteristics of our deserts today. There are three types of wind erosion: suspension, saltation, and deflation. Suspension is when strong winds pick up light surface materials such as salt, clay, and sand and carry them in suspension. Saltation is the transport of materials in which the particles bounce and roll along the ground. Deflation refers to wind blowing away sand, silt, and clay in deserts so that underlying rocks become exposed. Blowouts are formed by deflation. Water erosion is powerful but rare in deserts. Rain in desert regions are rare, but they often come in the form of sudden downpours in the mountain ranges surrounded by desert basins. With little vegetation, sediment mixes with the rushing water, resembling concrete. When water reaches flat desert basins, it fans out, creating a fan-shaped dispositional feature called an alveolar fan. There are many desert landforms which are created by these erosional processes, such as bahads. Alveolar fans grow so large that they join together to create one huge dispositional feature known as a bahad. A wades, a dry desert ditch which only contains water during a flash flood. A playa lake, a dry desert lake that contains water for a short while after a sudden downpour causing flooding. A canyon, a steep-sided valley. A plateau, an area of flat high land. A mesa, a flat table-topped feature. Buttes, a smaller table-topped feature. Hamadad stone or rock pavement, which is an exposed desert area in which wind has removed all loose debris, leaving behind only bedrock. A bolson, a low-lying desert valley being filled with wind-blown debris. Ergs, a great expanse of desert sand.
Desert sand dunes are mounds of sand that are formed by strong winds. These sand dunes usually start small, with the sand gradually collecting over an obstacle, usually a boulder or plant. As the size increases, more deposition occurs because collected sand blocks more of the wind. The side where the wind is blowing is called the windward side, which typically isn't as steep. The slip face is the side that doesn't have the wind blowing against it and is usually smoother and steeper. There are four different types of sand dunes. Bark and sand dunes form when winds blow from predominantly the same direction. They slowly migrate in the direction of the wind, being the dunes. Unlike barkens, transverse dunes form in regions with a lot more sand, creating a continuous ridge rather than a curve. Parabolic dunes look like barkens but are flipped, mainly due to vegetation that helps to anchor in the horns at the front. The inner area eroded by winds that you see here is known as a blowout. Longitudinal dunes form in areas with little sound where the direction of wind slightly varies, which causes the formation of dunes parallel to the wind's direction. Most vegetation can't grow on sand dunes because there is very little soil. However, some grasses, such as beach grass, can grow due to their tolerance for the environment. Dune migration, a process that we touched on earlier, can cause severe damages. Over the past few years, scientists have noticed a disaster that has started to occur in the deserts of Tunisia. The city of Mos Espa, the former home of Anakin Skywalker, is threatened by a rapidly approaching Barkan sand dune. Moving at 15 meters per year, this geological disaster is threatening to destroy the buildings used to shoot the scenes of Star Wars Episode 1. These satellite images show the devastating progression of the sand dune, with reports coming out that this year certain buildings on the outskirts of the fictional city have already been in contact with the sand dune. Star Wars fanatics are encouraged to visit the famous set before it becomes buried for the next foreseeable future.